Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished fixing the last pipe on the human ship New Denver. He was tired after working all day in the engine room. His hands were dirty and his back hurt, but he felt good about the work. Jake loved fixing things. It made him happy when broken machines worked again. The ship had stopped at Nexus Prime, a huge space station where different alien races came to trade. Jake's friends wanted to go drinking at the alien bars, but Jake had other plans. He wanted to see the famous Galactic Museum. He had heard stories about amazing things from old civilizations that were gone now. Jake walked through the busy station corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around him. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles instead of legs. A few looked almost human, but had blue skin or strange eyes. Jake found it all very interesting. Back on Earth, humans were still learning that they were not alone in the universe. The museum was bigger than Jake had expected. The main hall was so tall that he could not see the ceiling. Glass cases held strange objects that glowed with their own light. Signs in many different languages explained what each thing was. Jake's translator device helped him understand most of it. He wandered from room to room, looking at weapons that could cut through metal like paper, and art made from materials that did not exist on Earth. In one room, he saw a map of the galaxy showing where different alien races lived. The human section was just a tiny dot after 2 hours of walking. Jake found himself in a part of the museum that seemed different. The lights were dimmer here, and fewer people walked around. A sign said, "Keepers of the Void, Lost Guardians of the Galaxy." Jake read that the Void Keepers had been a powerful race that protected other species long ago. Then they disappeared without any explanation. In the center of the room stood something that made Jake stop walking. It was a set of armor unlike anything he had ever seen. The armor was tall, maybe 7 feet, and looked like it was made from metal and something alive at the same time. Dark blue and silver colors moved across its surface like water. The helmet had no face, just a smooth front that seemed to look at everything around it. A force field surrounded the armor, keeping visitors away. An alien guide with 6 arms was talking to a group of tourists. "This is the Sovereign's mantle," the guide said in a voice that sounded very serious. "Legend says it will only work for the rightful heir of the Void Keepers. For 3,000 years, it has waited for someone worthy to claim it." Jake moved closer to get a better look. The armor was beautiful and scary at the same time. He wondered what it would feel like to wear something so powerful. The guide continued talking about how many people had tried to activate the armor, but it never responded to anyone. While Jake listened, he noticed something the guide had not seen. Near the base of the display, a small panel was open. Cables and blinking lights showed that someone had been working on the force field system. The maintenance workers must have forgotten to close it when they finished their job. Jake looked around. The guide was busy with the tourists on the other side of the room. A few other visitors were reading signs or taking pictures, but no one was watching him. Jake had always been curious about how things worked. Before he could stop himself, he was moving toward the open panel. He told himself he just wanted to look. Maybe he could figure out how the force field worked. Jake had always been good with machines, and this was clearly some kind of technology. He crouched down and looked at the cables. Everything seemed normal, except for one connection that looked loose. Without thinking, Jake reached out to push the cable back into place. As soon as he touched it, something changed. The force field flickered and then disappeared completely. Jake stood up quickly, hoping no one had noticed. But now the armor was right in front of him. With nothing protecting it, Jake knew he should walk away. He knew touching museum displays was wrong, but the armor seemed to call to him somehow. It was so close now. He could see every detail of its surface. The metal looked smooth, but also strong. He wondered what it would feel like under his fingers. Just a quick touch, Jake thought. Just to see what it feels like. Then I will walk away and pretend this never happened. Jake reached out his hand toward the chest piece of the armor. The metal felt warm under his palm, which surprised him. He expected it to be cold like normal metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything changed at once. Dot light exploded from the armor. Bright white beams shot out in all directions, making everyone in the room cover their eyes. Jake tried to pull his hand away, but he could not move. The light was coming from where his skin touched the armor. A voice spoke, clear and loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. It did not come from any speaker. It seemed to come from the air itself. The voice was old and powerful, speaking in perfect galactic standard language. Genetic template confirmed, the voice said. Neural pattern acceptable. Biological compatibility verified. Welcome, rightful heir of the Void Keepers. Jake felt the armor begin to move. Pieces lifted themselves from the display stand and flew through the air toward him. The chest piece pressed against his body, fitting perfectly, even though it had looked too big moments before. Arm pieces wrapped around his arms. Leg pieces covered his legs. Everything fit like it had been made just for him. No, wait. Jake shouted, but his voice sounded different now. The helmet was sealing itself over his head. This is a mistake. I am just a mechanic. But the armor did not listen. More pieces attached themselves to his body. Jake felt the suit connecting to his mind somehow. Information flowed into his thoughts. He could suddenly understand every alien language being spoken around him. He could see energy patterns in the walls and floor that had been invisible before. The alien guide was making sounds that Jake now understood were words of fear and amazement. The tourists were backing away, some taking pictures, others running for the exits. Jake tried to move and found that the armor made him feel incredibly strong and light at the same time. System integration complete, the voice announced. All functions online. Air acknowledged and accepted. Beginning orientation protocol. Jake looked around the room through the armor's helmet. Everything looked different now. He could see the heat from people's bodies, the electrical systems in the walls, and energy fields he had never known existed. The armor felt like part of his body now, responding to his thoughts. Alarms started ringing throughout the museum. Red lights flashed as security systems activated. Jake heard the sound of running feet as guards rushed toward the room. He tried to take off the helmet, but it would not move. He tried to remove the arm pieces, but they stayed in place. How do I get this off? Jake asked out loud. Removal is not recommended at this time, the armor's voice replied inside his head. You are now the legal inheritor of all Void Keeper territories and technology. Security protocols are active. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Jake heard weapons charging up and orders being shouted in different alien languages. He realized that his simple curiosity had just changed his life in ways he could not imagine. All he had wanted was to touch some cool armor in a museum. Now everyone was calling him the rightful heir to an ancient galactic empire, and security forces were coming to either capture him or kill him. Jake had the feeling that his quiet life as a ship mechanic was over forever. Security guards rushed into the museum room with their weapons ready. Jake stood in the middle of the room wearing the ancient armor, not knowing what to do. The armor felt natural on his body now, but he still could not believe what had happened. 10 minutes ago, he was just a tourist looking at old things. Now he was apparently the heir to a dead alien empire. Step away from the artifact, shouted the lead security officer. He was a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. Each arm held a different weapon. Put your hands where we can see them. Jake raised his hands slowly. "Look, there has been a mistake," he said. "I did not mean for this to happen. I just touched it by accident." The armor's voice spoke in his head again. "Defensive systems activated. Multiple weapons detected. Shall I neutralize the threats?" "No." Jake said quickly, "Do not hurt anyone. These are just security guards doing their job." But when Jake spoke, his voice came out through the armor's speakers much louder than normal. The security guards thought he was threatening them. They opened fire immediately. Energy beams and projectile weapons hit Jake from all directions. He closed his eyes and waited to die. Instead, he felt nothing. When he opened his eyes, he saw a shimmering blue field surrounding his body. All the weapons' fire was bouncing off harmlessly. "Energy shield at 95%, the armor reported. "No damage detected? Returning fire?" "I said no," Jake replied. But he was amazed. The shield had appeared without him doing anything. The armor was protecting him automatically. More security guards arrived. Soon Jake was surrounded by dozens of armed aliens, all pointing weapons at him. The museum visitors had all run away, leaving him alone with what looked like a small army. The museum director pushed through the crowd of guards. Vextor was a strange creature that looked like a cross between an octopus and a spider. He had 6 arms and moved by walking on dozens of small legs. His skin changed colors as he moved, showing that he was very excited or scared. "Incredible," Vextor said in a shaky voice. "In all my years running this museum, I never thought I would see the Sovereign's mantle activate. You must understand, young human, what this means." "I understand that everyone is pointing guns at me," Jake replied. "Can someone please explain what is happening?" "I just wanted to look at the armor." Vextor's skin turned bright orange, which Jake somehow knew meant the alien was trying to stay calm. "According to galactic law, whoever the Sovereign's mantle accepts becomes the legal inheritor of all Void Keeper territories and technology. This includes 12 star systems, advanced weapons, and a fleet of warships hidden somewhere in the galaxy." Jake felt his stomach drop. 12 star systems? Warships? I am just a mechanic. I fix pipes and engines. I do not know how to rule anything. "The suit disagrees," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Captain Lisa Ford walking into the room. She was Jake's commanding officer from the New Denver. Lisa was a tough woman who had served in Earth's Space Navy before joining the exploration fleet. She looked calm, but Jake could see worry in her eyes. "Captain Ford," Jake said, feeling relieved to see a familiar face. "Please tell them this is all a mistake. Tell them I am nobody important." Lisa looked at Jake in his armor, then at all the weapons pointed at him. "Jake, what did you do?" "I touched some armor," Jake said weakly. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Before Lisa could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the entire space station. The lights changed from normal white to emergency red. A voice spoke over the station's communication system in multiple languages. "Attention all ships and personnel. This is Station Command. We are now under martial law. No ships may leave until further notice. All citizens must remain in their current locations." Vextor's skin turned purple. Oh no, word is spreading. When galactic governments learn that the Void Keeper heir has been found, there will be chaos. "What kind of chaos?" Lisa asked. "The kind where everyone wants to either control the human or kill him," Vextor replied. "The Void Keepers were the most powerful force this galaxy has ever seen. Their technology could destroy planets or create new ones. Every government will want that power." Jake felt the armor shift slightly on his body. The voice spoke in his head again. "Multiple spacecraft approaching the station. Energy signatures suggest military vessels from at least 4 different species. Recommendation: immediate departure." "Did everyone else hear that?" Jake asked. "Hear what?" Lisa said Jake realized the armor was only talking to him. "The armor says military ships are coming, A lot of them. Lisa grabbed Jake's armored arm. "We need to get you out of here. Now." "I cannot leave," Jake protested. "The armor will not come off. And apparently, I am some kind of galactic emperor now." "You are not an emperor until you claim your inheritance," Vextor said. "But the moment you try to access Void Keeper technology or territories, every government in the galaxy will either bow to you or try to destroy you. There is no middle ground." The station shook suddenly. Through the museum's windows, Jake could see bright flashes in space. Ships were arriving through hyperspace jumps, appearing out of nowhere in bursts of light. Some of the ships were enormous, larger than the space station itself. "Bounty hunters," Lisa said grimly, looking at the ships. "And government agents. Word travels fast in space." Jake tried to take a step toward the window and was surprised by how easily the armor moved. It felt like he was not wearing anything at all. When he looked at the approaching ships, the armor's helmet showed him information about each one. Ship types, weapon systems, crew sizes. The armor knew everything about the vessels heading their way. "There are 43 ships out there," Jake said without thinking about it. 12 are bounty hunter vessels. The rest are military ships from different governments. Everyone stared at him. "How do you know that?" Lisa asked. "The armor is telling me," Jake replied. He was getting used to the constant stream of information flowing into his mind. "It can scan everything around us." The station shook again, harder this time. More ships were arriving every minute. Jake could see them through the armor's enhanced vision, even the ones that were trying to stay hidden. "This is getting out of hand," Lisa said. "Jake, we need to get back to the New Denver and leave this system." "The human cannot leave," said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a group of aliens in fancy uniforms walking into the room. The leader was tall and thin with blue skin and silver eyes. "I am Ambassador Krelzon of the Hegemony Council. The heir to the Void Keepers must come with us for proper evaluation." "I am not going anywhere with you," Jake said firmly. The armor made his voice sound more confident than he felt. Ambassador Krelzon smiled, showing sharp teeth. "I was not asking. Surrender now, and we will treat you well. Refuse, and we will take you by force." "Over my dead body," Lisa said, stepping in front of Jake. "That can be arranged," the ambassador replied. The armor's voice spoke urgently in Jake's head. "Immediate threat detected. These beings carry concealed weapons designed to penetrate energy shields. Recommend active defense." Jake felt something change in the armor. Systems he did not understand began activating. The blue energy shield around him grew brighter and stronger. He could feel power building up in ways that scared him. "Everyone needs to calm down," Jake said loudly. "I do not want to fight anyone. I just want to figure out how to get this armor off and go back to my normal life." "That life is over," Ambassador Krelzon said coldly. "You are now the most important person in the galaxy. Every government wants to control you. Every enemy wants to kill you. There is nowhere you can hide." The station shook violently as more ships arrived. Through the windows, Jake could see weapons being charged and shields being raised. The space around Nexus Prime was filling with warships, all of them focused on the museum where he stood. "We are trapped," Lisa said quietly. Jake looked around the room at all the aliens pointing weapons at him, then out at the space battle that was about to begin. All of this was happening because he had been curious about some old armor. He thought about his quiet life on the New Denver, fixing engines and eating meals with his friends. That life seemed very far away now. The armor spoke to him again. "Flight systems online. Weapon systems available. Shall I activate combat mode?" Jake realized he had a choice to make. He could try to surrender and let the aliens decide his fate, or he could trust the armor and fight his way out. Neither option seemed good, but he knew he could not let Lisa and the other humans get hurt because of his mistake. Jake, Lisa said softly, whatever you are thinking, remember that you are still human. Do not let that armor change who you are. Jake nodded inside the helmet. She was right. No matter what happened, he had to stay himself. But he also had to survive, and right now, survival looked very complicated. The space battle around Nexus Prime had been going for 3 hours. Jake watched from the bridge of the human ship Pioneer's Edge as Captain Lisa Ford tried to navigate between the warring alien fleets. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, like deadly fireworks. How many ships are out there now? Jake asked. The armor was still attached to his body, and he was beginning to understand that it might never come off. 68 at last count, replied Tom Bradley, the ship's navigator. More arriving every hour. Half the galaxy wants to capture you. Jake? Jake sat heavily in a chair that the crew had modified to fit his armored form. The armor felt lighter now, like it was becoming part of him. Sometimes he forgot he was wearing it at all. The voice in his head, which called itself Sentinel, had been teaching him about Void Keeper history. Tell me about the Devourers again, Jake said to the armor. Sentinel's voice was calm and patient. The Devourers were an ancient enemy that consumed entire civilizations. They appeared from outside our galaxy 3,000 years ago. The Void Keepers fought them for centuries before making the ultimate sacrifice to drive them away. What kind of sacrifice? Jake asked. The Void Keepers used their life energy to power a barrier that sealed the galaxy's borders. They died to protect every other species from the Devourers. That is why there are no Void Keepers left alive. Lisa Ford walked over to Jake's chair. Talking to your invisible friend again? The armor's artificial intelligence, Jake explained. It is trying to teach me how to use Void Keeper technology. Lisa looked worried. Jake, you have been wearing that thing for 6 hours. Are you sure it is not changing you somehow? You seem different. Jake thought about that. He did feel different. Stronger, smarter, more aware of everything around him. But inside, he still felt like the same person who had fixed pipes and engines on the new Denver. I am still me, Jake said. The armor helps me understand things, but it does not control my thoughts. Good, Lisa replied. Because we have a problem. The Hegemony Council just sent us a message. They want you to surrender, or they will start destroying human colonies. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The armor responded to his emotions, and systems began activating that he did not understand. Warning lights appeared in his vision, and power readings started climbing. They cannot threaten innocent people, Jake said. His voice came out louder than he intended, with harmonics that made the bridge windows vibrate. Emotional response detected, Sentinel reported. Combat systems activating. Shall I prepare weapons? No weapons, Jake said quickly. He took deep breaths and tried to calm down. The warning lights faded, and the power readings returned to normal. Dr. Amy Collins, the ship's scientist, looked up from her research station. Jake, I have been studying the scans we took of you and the armor. I found something interesting. What? Kind of interesting? Jake asked. Amy brought up a holographic display showing human DNA patterns. Your genetic code contains markers that match Void Keeper templates. It is like pieces of their DNA were mixed into human DNA long ago. That is impossible, Lisa said. Humans evolved on Earth. We never met any aliens until 50 years ago. Unless, Amy continued, the Void Keepers visited Earth in the distant past. Maybe they left genetic markers in early human ancestors. Sentinel's voice spoke in Jake's head. Dr. Collins is correct. The Void Keepers seeded many worlds with genetic templates before their final battle. They hoped that someday their inheritors would continue their mission of protecting younger species. Jake shared this information with the others. The bridge fell silent as everyone thought about what this meant. So I am not really human? Jake asked. You are human, Amy assured him. But you are also something more. The Void Keeper DNA is only a small part of your genetic code. It just makes you compatible with their technology. Another explosion outside the ship drew everyone's attention to the windows. 2 alien fleets were fighting each other, while a third group tried to break through their lines to reach the Pioneer's edge. We cannot stay here much longer, Lisa said. Our shields are holding, but we are outnumbered 100 to 1. Where can we go? Jake asked. They will follow us anywhere. Sentinel spoke up in his head. There is a place. Hidden coordinates that only the armor knows. The location of the Void Keeper fleet. Jake's heart skipped a beat. The Void Keeper fleet still exists? In automated hibernation mode, Sentinel explained, waiting for the rightful heir to awaken them. Jake told the others what Sentinel had revealed. Lisa looked skeptical. A hidden fleet that has been sleeping for 3,000 years? That sounds too good to be true. It is our only option, Jake replied, unless you have a better idea for getting past 68 warships. Before Lisa could answer, the ship's communications officer called out. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from something big. Really big. On the main screen, a massive alien ship appeared. It was larger than anything Jake had ever seen, more like a small moon than a spacecraft. The hull was covered in weapons, and armor plating that looked ancient, but still dangerous. A deep voice spoke over the communication system. Attention, human vessel. This is Fleet Commander Zexmore of the Destroyer Imperium. You will surrender the false heir immediately, or we will demonstrate why our empire has conquered 47 star systems. Jake stood up from his chair. The armor moved with him smoothly, making him feel graceful despite its size. False heir? Jake said angrily. Who are they calling false? Species that believe they deserve to inherit Void Keeper technology, Sentinel explained. Many have tried to claim the armor over the centuries. All have failed. But I did not try to claim anything, Jake protested. I just touched it by accident. That is why you succeeded, Sentinel replied. The armor responds to worthiness, not ambition. Your desire to help others, even strangers, marks you as a true inheritor. The massive alien ship began moving toward them. Smaller ships peeled away from the other fleets to join it. Jake could see weapons charging up, ready to destroy the Pioneer's edge. Lisa, we need to leave, Jake said urgently. Now, where are these coordinates? Lisa asked. Jake closed his eyes and let the armor access his thoughts. Information flowed into his mind. Star charts, navigation data, hyperspace jump calculations. When he opened his eyes, he knew exactly where they needed to go. I will input the coordinates, Jake said, moving to the navigation station. As soon as he touched the controls, the armor interfaced with the ship's computer. Data flowed between them at incredible speed. Jump ready, Tom Bradley announced, sounding amazed. How did you calculate a hyperspace route that fast? The armor helped. Jake replied. It knows things that our computers do not. All ships, prepare to fire. Commander Zexmore's voice boomed over the communication system. Destroy the human ship. Dozens of alien vessels turned their weapons toward the Pioneer's edge. Energy beams and missile launchers began charging. Jake realized they had maybe 30 seconds before the shooting started. Jump now, Jake ordered. Lisa looked at him for a moment and nodded to her crew. You heard him. Take us out of here. The Pioneer's edge leaped into hyperspace just as the alien weapons fired. The ship shook and twisted as it moved through dimensions that human science barely understood. Jake felt the armor stabilizing him, protecting him from the effects of the jump dot in the swirling tunnel of hyperspace. Jake had time to think about what was happening to him. 3 days ago, He had been a simple mechanic with a simple life. Now, he was the heir to an ancient galactic empire, being hunted by half the civilizations in the galaxy. But as scared as he was, Jake also felt something else. Purpose. The armor was showing him images of the Void Keeper's last battle, their sacrifice. To protect other species. They had given their lives so that billions of beings could live in peace. "Sentinel," Jake said quietly, "what happens when we reach the fleet?" "You will have a choice to make," the AI replied. "You can use Void Keeper technology to protect only humanity and flee to another galaxy. Or you can take up the full mantle of Guardian and protect all species, as the Void Keepers did. And if I choose to be a Guardian, then you follow the path of those who came before you. You give your life to protect others. It is not an easy path, but it is a worthy one." Jake looked around at the humans on the bridge. Lisa, Amy, Tom, and the others were all counting on him to make the right choice. But it was not just humans who would be affected by his decision. Trillions of beings across the galaxy would live or die based on what he chose to do. The armor felt heavier suddenly, not physically, but emotionally. Jake was beginning to understand the weight of responsibility that came with power. The Void Keepers had not been conquerors. They had been protectors. And now, somehow, that job was his. "Jump complete," Tom announced. "We are approaching the coordinates." Through the bridge windows, Jake could see a star system unlike any other. Ancient. Space stations orbited dead planets, all of them dark and lifeless. But as the Pioneer's Edge moved deeper into the system, Jake began to see shapes in the shadows between the world's dot ships. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all waiting in the darkness like sleeping giants, ready to wake up after 3,000 years of silence. The hidden Void Keeper fleet was more amazing than Jake could have imagined. Ships of every size floated in perfect formation around a massive space station. Some vessels were small like fighters. Others were huge like the battleships he had. Seen in the space battle at Nexus Prime, all of them had the same dark blue and silver colors as his armor. "My God," whispered Captain Lisa Ford as she stared out the bridge windows. "There must be 1,000 ships out there." 1,247 combat vessels, Sentinel corrected in Jake's head, plus support ships, repair stations, and manufacturing platforms. This is the complete Void Keeper war fleet. Jake felt nervous as the Pioneer's Edge moved toward the largest ship at the center of the formation. It was enormous, maybe 5 miles long, with weapons that could probably destroy planets. The thought that he was supposed to command all of this seemed impossible. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked Sentinel quietly. "The fleet has been waiting for 3,000 years, the AI replied. "It is time for the Void Keeper's mission to continue." As they approached the flagship, lights began turning on across its hull. Other ships in the fleet started powering up as well. Jake could see their engines glowing and their weapon systems coming online. After sleeping for so long, the entire fleet was waking up. "They are responding to you," Dr. Amy Collins said, checking her instruments. "The ship's computers are detecting the armor's signal." The flagship opened a docking bay large enough for 10 ships the size of the Pioneer's Edge. Lisa carefully flew them inside, and Jake could see that the docking bay was designed for human-sized beings. The Void Keepers had been about the same, size as humans. When they landed, Jake stood up from his chair. The armor felt completely natural now, like it had always been part of him. He could access its systems without thinking about it. Information flowed through his mind, showing him the status of every ship in the fleet. "I should go aboard alone first," Jake said. "We do not know what will happen when I enter their command center." "I am coming with you," Lisa said firmly. "You are still part of my crew, Jake. I am not letting you face this alone." Amy stepped forward as well. and I want to study their technology. This is the discovery of the century." Jake smiled inside his helmet. Even after everything that had happened, his friends still wanted to help him. It made him feel more human, which was important as the armor continued to change how he saw the world. They walked through corridors that were completely dark until Jake approached. Then lights would turn on automatically, and Jake could hear the ship's systems starting up after their long sleep. The walls were covered in the same biomechanical design as his armor, looking both technological and alive. Finally, they reached the command center. It was a huge room with a chair in the center, surrounded by holographic displays. As soon as Jake entered, every screen lit up with information. The chair turned toward him, like it was welcoming him home. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Vigil, Rightful." "Air," said a new voice. It was similar to Sentinel, but older, more formal. "I am Eternal, the fleet's primary artificial intelligence. We have been waiting for you." Jake walked slowly toward the command chair. "How long have you been waiting?" 3,047 years, 6 months, 12 days, Eternal replied precisely. "Since the last Void Keeper gave his life to complete the galactic barrier." "Tell me about the barrier," Jake said, sitting carefully in the command chair. It adjusted itself to fit his armored body perfectly. The room filled with holographic images showing the galaxy from above. A shimmering wall of energy surrounded the entire spiral of stars. "The barrier prevents the Devourers from entering our galaxy," Eternal explained, "but it is weakening. Our sensors detect cracks forming along the outer rim." Jake felt cold inside the armor. How long before it fails? "At current degradation rates, approximately 18 months. Lisa and Amy exchanged worried looks. "What happens when it fails?" Lisa asked. "The Devourers return," Eternal replied simply. "They will consume every civilization in the galaxy, just as they did in their home dimension." Jake leaned back in the command chair, feeling overwhelmed. "So I have 18 months to figure out how to stop an enemy that destroyed the most powerful civilization in galactic history." "You have advantages the original Void Keepers did not," Sentinel pointed out. "You think differently than they did. Humans approach problems in ways that no other species has tried." Amy was studying the holographic displays with fascination. "Jake, look at these ship designs. They are not just weapons. They are designed to work together, like parts of a larger organism." Jake focused on the fleet status displays. Amy was right. Each ship had specific roles, and they were all connected through a network that allowed them to coordinate perfectly. It was like having a single mind controlling 1,000 bodies. "The Void Keepers fought as individuals," Eternal explained. "Each ship had one pilot, one commander. But the fleet can also operate as a collective if the air chooses to link with all systems." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "You would become the central consciousness of the entire fleet," Sentinel replied. "All ships would respond to your thoughts as if they were extensions of your own body, but the process changes the user permanently." Before Jake could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the command center. Red lights flashed as Eternal announced, "Long-range sensors detect Devourer scout forces breaching the galactic barrier. They have found us." Jake stood up from the command chair as holographic displays showed the edge of the galaxy. Dark shapes were moving through small cracks in the energy barrier. The shapes looked wrong somehow, like they did not belong in normal space. "How many?" Jake asked. 12 scout vessels, Eternal reported. "Small compared to their main force, but each one is capable of consuming a planet's entire population." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Somewhere in the galaxy, innocent people were about to die if he did not act. But he was just one person with a fleet he barely understood. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "what are you thinking?" "I am thinking that I never wanted to be a hero," Jake replied. "I just wanted to fix engines and live a quiet life. Heroes rarely choose their destiny, Amy said, but they choose how to respond to it. Jake looked at the displays showing the approaching Devourer scouts. Then he looked at his friends, who were counting on him to make the right choice. Finally, he looked at the fleet status screens, showing over 1,000 ships ready to follow his commands. Eternal, Jake said. Can the fleet stop the scouts without linking to my consciousness? Possible, but not optimal, the AI replied. Individual ship combat effectiveness is 63% of linked operation capability. And if I link with the fleet, combat effectiveness increases to 97%. But the process cannot be reversed. You would become permanently connected to all fleet systems. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think clearly. If he linked with the fleet, he could stop the scouts easily. But he would never be fully human. Again, if he did not link, he might fail to stop them, and innocent people would die. There is a third option, Sentinel said quietly. Partial linking. Connect temporarily to coordinate the battle, then disconnect afterward. It is risky, but possible. What kind of risk? Jake asked. The process might damage your human consciousness. You could lose memories, personality traits, or emotional responses. Or the link might become permanent, despite our efforts to disconnect it. Jake looked at Lisa and Amy. Both women were watching him with concern and trust. They believed he would make the right choice, even if it meant sacrificing himself. The scouts are entering the Kepler system, Eternal announced. 4 million colonists on 3 planets. Estimated time to planetary consumption, 6 hours. Jake made his decision. Begin partial linking procedures. I will not let innocent people die because I was afraid to take risks. Jake, no, Lisa said. Urgently, there has to be another way. Maybe, Jake replied, but we do not have time to find it. He sat back down in the command chair as cables emerged from the armrests and connected to ports in his armor. Jake felt the ship's systems linking to his mind, followed by more ships, then dozens, then hundreds. Information flooded his consciousness. He could see through the sensors of every ship in the fleet. He could control their weapons, their engines, their shields. For a moment, Jake felt like he was everywhere at once, a god commanding forces beyond imagination. Then, the human part of his mind reasserted itself, and Jake focused on the mission. Save the people in the Kepler system. Everything else could wait. Fleet command established, Jake announced, his voice now speaking through every ship's communication system simultaneously. All vessels, prepare for hyperspace jump. We have people to save. The Void Keeper fleet began moving for the first time in 3,000 years, heading toward battle with an enemy that had once destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. And, at the center of it all, a human mechanic who had never wanted to be more than he was tried to figure out how to save everyone he could. The battle at Kepler system was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Through the sensors of 1,000 ships, he could see the Devourer scouts attacking the 3 colony planets. The enemy vessels looked like living nightmares, all tentacles, and teeth and dark energy that seemed to eat light itself. Jake felt his consciousness spread across the entire Void Keeper fleet as they dropped out of hyperspace. He was piloting fighters, commanding battleships, and coordinating support vessels all at the same time. It should have been impossible for a human mind to handle, but somehow it felt natural. All ships, engage the enemy, Jake commanded through the fleet communication system. Protect the colonists at all costs. The battle began immediately. Void Keeper ships moved with perfect coordination, striking the Devourer scouts from multiple angles. Jake found that his human way of thinking gave him advantages the original Void Keepers had never had. Instead of fighting in formal battle lines, he used unpredictable tactics that confused the enemy. He sent fighter squadrons in seemingly random patterns that turned out to be carefully planned attacks. He had battleships retreat just when the enemy expected them to advance, then hit them from unexpected directions. Most importantly, he coordinated with the colonial defense forces instead of trying to handle everything alone. "This is Colonial Defense Command," came a voice over the communication system. "Unknown fleet. Identify yourself." "This is Jake Miller of the Void Keeper Fleet," Jake replied. "We are here to help. Can you evacuate the civilian populations?" There was a long pause. "Did you say Void Keeper Fleet? That is impossible. The Void Keepers are extinct." "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated," Jake said, using humor to keep himself grounded as thousands of weapons fired around him. "Focus on getting your people to safety. We will handle the scouts." The battle raged for 3 hours. Jake learned more about combat in those 3 hours than most military officers learned in years. The armor and the fleet's artificial intelligences taught him tactics and strategies while he fought, turning him into a military genius in real time. But the most important thing Jake learned was about the Devourers themselves. They were not just destroyers. They were a hive mind that absorbed the unique qualities of every species they consumed. They grew stronger and smarter with each civilization they destroyed. That is why the Void Keepers were losing, Jake realized during a brief pause in the battle. The Devourers were learning from them, copying their tactics and technology. "Correct," Sentinel replied in his mind. "But you fight differently than any Void Keeper ever did. Your human unpredictability makes you hard for them to analyze and copy." Jake smiled inside his helmet as he sent a squadron of ships in a pattern that looked completely chaotic, but was actually a complex mathematical spiral. The Devourers tried to predict where the ships would go next and position themselves to intercept. Instead, the Void Keeper fighters ended up exactly where they needed to be to destroy a scout ship's main weapon. Human tactics are apparently very confusing, Jake muttered. By the end of the battle, all 12 Devourer scouts had been destroyed. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The scouts had been testing the galaxy's defenses, learning about the Void Keeper fleet's capabilities. Soon, the main Devourer force would come through the weakening barrier. "Fleet status report," Jake requested as the ships regrouped. "Minimal damage to our forces," Eternal reported. "Colonial casualties, 0. Mission successful." Jake felt relief flow through him. They had saved everyone. 4 million people were alive because he had been willing to risk linking with the fleet. But as the battle ended, Jake faced a new problem. The link was not disconnecting properly. "Sentinel," Jake said quietly, "I can still feel the connection to every ship." "The partial link has become more permanent than anticipated," Sentinel replied. "Your human neural patterns have adapted to the connection faster than our models predicted." "What does that mean for me?" "You are still human, but you are also something more. The fleet is now part of you, and you are part of it. The connection cannot be severed without damaging both your consciousness and the fleet's operational capacity." Jake sat in the command chair of the Eternal Vigil, trying to process what this meant. He could feel the thoughts and systems of over 1,000 ships. He could see through sensors spread across light years of space. But underneath all of that, he was still Jake Miller, a mechanic who had just wanted to look at some cool armor. Captain Lisa Forbes walked onto the bridge of the main flagship. She had been coordinating with the colonial authorities while Jake fought the battle. "The colonists want to thank you personally," she said. "You saved 4 million lives today." "We saved them," Jake corrected. "I could not have done this alone." Dr. Amy Collins joined them, carrying a tablet full of research data. "Jake, I have been studying the sensor readings from the battle. The Devourers are not just a military threat. They are a threat to the fundamental nature of reality in our galaxy." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. They exist partially outside. Normal space-time, Amy explained. When they consume a civilization, they do not just kill the people. They erase the culture, the history, even the memory that those people ever existed. It is like they delete entire species from reality itself. Jake felt cold despite the armor's environmental systems. How many civilizations have they erased? Completely? Based on the data patterns, probably thousands, Amy replied. Maybe hundreds of thousands. We have no way of knowing because they have been erased so completely that no evidence of them remains. The weight of responsibility settled, even more heavily on Jake's shoulders. He was not just fighting to protect the current civilizations in the galaxy. He was fighting to prevent the complete erasure of everything and everyone he cared about. "Sir," called Tom Bradley from the navigation station, "we are receiving communications from multiple governments across the galaxy. Word about the battle has spread. They want to know who you are and what your intentions are." Jake thought about this for a moment. Before the battle, he had been a fugitive hiding from various alien governments. Now he was the commander of the most powerful fleet in galactic history, and everyone wanted to talk to him. "Put me through to all of them," Jake decided. "It is time to explain what is happening." The main screen filled with representatives from dozens of different species. Jake recognized some of them from the pursuit at Nexus Prime. Ambassador Krelzon of the Hegemony Council was there, looking much less confident than before. "This is Jake Miller, heir to the Void Keepers and commander of their fleet," Jake began. "I know many of you have been hunting me, trying to capture me or kill me. I understand why. The power I represent is frightening." The alien representatives listened quietly. Some looked afraid, others looked angry, and a few looked hopeful. "But I am not here to conquer anyone or rule anything," Jake continued. "The Devourers are returning. They will destroy every civilization in this galaxy unless we work together to stop them. I am offering an alliance to any species willing to fight for their survival." Ambassador Krelzon spoke first. "Human, you ask us to trust you with weapons that could destroy our worlds. How do we know you will not use them against?" "You? Because I am still human," Jake replied simply. "And humans protect people, even people who are different from us. It is what we do." Over the next several hours, Jake negotiated with governments across the galaxy. Some species agreed to the alliance immediately. Others demanded proof of the Devourer threat. A few refused to believe that the situation was as serious as Jake. Claimed but slowly, an alliance began to form. Species that had been enemies for centuries agreed to work together. Fleets that had been preparing to fight each other turned their attention to the galactic barrier and the growing cracks in it. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Vigil, looking out at the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different species floated in formation, all united under his command. The barrier was failing faster than anyone had predicted. Devourer advance forces were already breaking through in multiple locations. But for the first time since the crisis began, Jake felt hopeful. "Sentinel," he said quietly, "do you think we can win?" "The original Void Keepers fought alone," Sentinel replied. "You fight with all eyes. You think in ways they never did. And most importantly, you never give up. Yes, I believe we can win." Jake smiled inside his helmet. He had changed a lot since that day in the museum, when he touched some armor he should not have touched. He was no longer just a human, but he was still human. He commanded a fleet of alien warships, but he still cared about fixing broken things and helping people. "All ships," Jake announced over the fleet communication system, "prepare for the final battle. Today we fight not just for our own species, but for every species that has ever existed in this galaxy. Today we prove that unity is stronger than consumption, that hope is stronger than hunger, and that sometimes the best person for an impossible job is someone who never wanted it in the first place. The combined fleet began moving toward the galactic barrier, where the final battle between the forces of creation and consumption would be fought. And at the center of it all, Jake Miller, former mechanic, accidental heir, and reluctant hero, prepared to do what humans did best: protect others, no matter the cost. As they approached the barrier, Jake received a signal from beyond the galactic rim, not from the Devourers this time, but from other galaxies where humans had begun to spread. Each message told the same story: humans finding ancient technologies, humans uniting different species, humans solving problems that no one else could solve. Looks like I am not the only human who cannot resist touching things I probably should. Not, Jake said to Sentinel. Indeed, Jake Miller, Sentinel replied, and Jake could hear something like amusement in the AI's voice. Humanity appears to be the universe's most fortunate accident. Jake grinned inside his helmet as the fleet prepared to save the galaxy. Accident? Who says it was an accident? The armor hummed with power around him. The fleet responded to his thoughts like extensions of his own body. And somewhere in the depths of space, the final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. Jake Miller had wanted to try on some armor, and now he was ready to save everyone.